We are awakening together. This is our weekly gathering we hold online. For more information, visit our website, awakening-together.org. We'd love to see you there.
All right. Good morning, everyone. And happy Sunday and happy spring. I don't know how it is at your house, but boy, the birds are really active outside my window today, just making all kinds of noise. They're happy as can be out there doing their busy spring thing. So it's nice to hear spring outside. As you know, this is our weekly Sunday gathering. And I'd like to welcome everyone to our gathering. Lots of churches are doing gatherings online now, but we've been doing that since the beginning. So guess we were a little ahead of the curve. Today's gathering is called You Are Called to Be a Teacher of God. And I feel like Dove kind of laid the groundwork for this gathering a couple weeks ago when he came and did his sharing here. So this is kind of a follow-on to what Dove started. Before we jump into the gathering, however, we're going to take the opportunity to greet one another on the chat board. Thank you very much, Don. I would like to start with the statement of purpose. This is one of our core values. It fits well with what we're going to be looking at today. In fact, it's our first core value. We trust everyone is led by unique inner guidance to one experience called awakening, which is realization of one true self. We live this value by supporting one another on different paths of awakening. Before I get into the devotional part of our service, I'd like to share some announcements. First of all, I'm sure you guys have noticed that our retreats, which are typically held at the retreat house in La Vida, have been moved online during this time of stay at home due to COVID-19. So we have 2 retreats coming up at the end of April. The first one is the Freedom from the Judge retreat. This retreat will be April 24 to 26. That's a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Again, it will be online. It will be led by Jacqueline Akers. And the purpose of this retreat is to really help you disengage from your thoughts as me, or disengage from your thoughts as my thoughts, right? To put some distance between those thoughts and your perception of who you are or what you are. So Jacqueline will be leading that retreat, and the cost of that retreat is $120 for the 3 days. And then that retreat ends on Sunday, the very next day, Monday, April 27th through Friday, May 1st. I will be leading a retreat. And the retreat that I am leading is called Releasing the I Am Bad Belief. And of course, that's focusing on letting go of one category of thoughts, but a category of thoughts that causes a lot of pain and a lot of trouble. We have been told by people who have taken both the Freedom from the Judge retreat and the Releasing the I Am Bad Belief retreat, because both retreats were offered at the retreat house last year. We've been told that these retreats play off each other really well. We've been told that if you take the Freedom from the Judge retreat and then take the Releasing the I Am Bad Belief retreat in that order, that it's really powerful. So we've decided to offer them that way. So it's really 8 days in a row if you decide to take both retreats and just, take advantage of the way they play off of each other. Now, if you take the Releasing the I Am Bad Belief retreat by itself, that cost is $200. It's a 5-day retreat. As I already mentioned, the Freedom from the Judge retreat is $120. So if you take the 2 retreats together for 8 days, it's $320 total. But you can take either one retreat. You don't need to take both. Just to let you know what the schedule will look like, the retreats each day will begin at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, which is 8 a.m. Mountain Time, and they will run each day until 5 p.m. Eastern Time, which is 3 p.m. Mountain Time, and there will be a 2-hour lunch break around 1 o'clock Eastern Time or 11 a.m. Mountain Time. So that's really 5 instruction hours online, 3 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon. That's how we did the letting go of fear retreat last weekend, and those hours seem to work really well. So we're just going to stick with them. Those retreats are not held in the sanctuary. In fact, when you register, you'll be given a special link. And in fact, the link for the 2 retreats will likely be different. So just remember that when you register, we'll send you a link, and that's where you go for the retreat. In order to learn more about these retreats and in order to register, just go to our website, awakening-together.org. Look at the retreats and classes menu, and you'll find them right there on the menu. Also, when you go to the retreats and classes menu on our website, you're going to find information about our fall retreat. At this time, we're still planning to hold the fall retreat. Now, I absolutely promise you that if that doesn't seem like a safe or good idea, those retreats will be canceled. Probably part of it we brought online, but we can't bring the pilgrimage online, so that part would have to be canceled. If we do end up having to cancel the retreats, even though it says that there is a non-refundable deposit, don't worry, if we have to cancel, all money will be returned. So there's nothing to be concerned about there. But we have changed the retreat dates just a little bit. Now the pilgrimage is still scheduled when we've originally scheduled it. So the New Mexico pilgrimage hasn't changed. That's going to be September 20th to September 25th. And of course, we're going to Taos and areas around Taos and Santa Fe and areas around Santa Fe, visiting many considered holy sites and highly inspirational sites. It'll be a wonderful pilgrimage, assuming we get to do that. We'll see what happens. We'll do whatever is best. I promise you that. But what has changed is the dates for the Keys to the Kingdom retreat. That was going to be before the New Mexico pilgrimage. That has now changed to after. It's the very next week, so if you are flying here and coming for both, you'll only have to fly once. But the new dates for the Kingdom of the Keys retreat is September 27th to October 1. That means the entire retreat, both the pilgrimage and the Keys to the Kingdom, begins on September 20th. You would want to arrive by September 19th. And ends on October 1. You would leave here October 2nd if you're coming to both. Again, just like with all of our fall retreats, you can register for one or both of those. And as I already mentioned, you can find more information at awakening-together.org under the retreats and classes menu. It's right there. Also, I just want to point out, for those of you who are interested, today is the last day to register for Diedrich Woolsack's online class, which is being offered through the Teachers of God. They have a special speaker program. Last year, Jacqueline was a part of their special speaker program. This year, in the month of November, I will be a part of that special speaker program. They run it as a subscription. You pay a certain amount. I don't remember the amount. I think it's around $25, but I could be a little off. You pay a certain amount per month, and you get a different teacher with their program every month. However, they are offering the subscription for free for the month of April, which is Diedrich's month. Again, because of this COVID-19 thing, lots of people are doing this kind of thing. Diedrich, for those of you who don't know, he has a wonderful process, which is also, the purpose of that process is to help release the I am bad belief. So it fits very well with the retreat we're doing this month. It's called the Choose Again process. Awakening Together did have a retreat. I can't remember the year, but I remember it was in May, probably around 2015, maybe 2014. It was here in Canyon City, Colorado. Some of you went to that. We also share the Choose Again process during our Gentle Healing Year 1 curriculum. So Diedrich is very closely related to Awakening Together. And in fact, one of his employees at the Choose Again Foundation, Dawn Green, she teaches gentle healing as well up in Canada. So we're very closely related to them. So if you're interested in taking his program, if you just go to the Awakening Together website, this time click on To Read, and then click on AT News. To Read and AT News, and then just scroll down a little bit and look for a post called Join Diedrich Woolsack of Choose Again, and open that up. That's where you'll find the link in order to go and register for that. And again, today is the last day to register because his online program begins tomorrow, and the month of April is free. So, and most of y'all are at home, so lots of reasons to maybe take this class from Diedrich if it's calling to you. The last announcement that I have is that tonight we're having a special ministers meeting. This is a meeting, the agenda of the meeting has been put together for all of Awakening Together's current and future ministers. However, everyone is invited to attend the meeting. I am absolutely certain there will be information in this meeting that is interesting to every one of you. But you'll probably notice during the agenda, we will direct some things to the Awakening Together ministers specifically. This meeting is tonight, right here in the sanctuary at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. The meeting will be led by Jacqueline, by Doreen Bonnet, and then I will also be there. And that is the end of our announcements for today. So now we're ready to switch into the devotional aspect, and we'll begin with a song. Now this song to me is, there are a few songs that highly influenced me on the beginning of my spiritual path in that year, 2004, prior to receiving my calling. And I think these songs deserve some credit for preparing me to accept and follow my calling. I've shared one with you before through a post. We'll be listening to that later today. This is a different song, but it's the same artist. It's Scott Grace. Back then he was called Scott Klickstein. This song is called You Guide Me. So Don, take it away. How does that end? There's really one more line, but I'll tell you the one more line. I don't know if they didn't put it in that video. It's again, wherever I am in this world, you're guiding me home. That's how the song ends. So, so thank you, Don, very much for playing that. So as I mentioned, the name of today's weekly gathering is You Are Called to Be a Teacher of God. And the reading that I have selected was also highly influential to me. I mean, many of you know the story of my calling and how it came about. You know that several months before my calling, I went on that Disney cruise and I said that prayer just before starting A Course in Miracles workbook. The prayer was, I will learn whatever you want me to learn. I will do whatever you want me to do. Just please make me useful for the rest of my life. Of course, in all stories, there are details that don't often get told. And there is a detail that hasn't often been told related to that story. And the detail is that I did start the course workbook and the course text on that day on the Disney cruise. But prior to going on the Disney cruise, I had achieved a lot of goals in my life that I had wanted to achieve. Like I had set goals and I had achieved them. And I feel like I was sitting on top of my own little hill. And I noticed I wasn't fulfilled. And so I asked within something like, what's next? What's next? And when I asked that question, I was reminded of A Course in Miracles, which I had bought several years before, attempted to read, attempted to do the workbook, was very unsuccessful, and I'd put it in a drawer. I was reminded of that book, and I took it out of that drawer when I asked what's next. I took it out of that drawer, and I looked at it, and I remember I had the memory of not doing well with it before. I read part of the text, didn't understand it, started the workbook lessons, couldn't do what was asked to be done, couldn't stick with it beyond the first simple lessons. And they're both such huge, the text is so big, and the workbook is a whole year. I just couldn't bear to start that again. But I looked at the manual for teachers in the back. I thought I'll start there because it was littler. And so before going on the Disney cruise, I actually read the manual for teachers. And of course, the very first thing I read was the introduction. And the introduction to the manual for teachers was actually very powerful for me. So today I'm going to share that part of the story. Before we do that, I've asked Reverend Phil Frisk to be my reader today, and he will read the introduction for us. So Phil, turning the mic over to you.
Good morning. So this is the introduction to the Manual for Teachers. The role of teaching and learning is actually reversed in the thinking of the world. It seems as if the reader is the teacher and the learner are separated. the teacher giving something to be learned rather than to himself. Further, the act of teaching is regarded as a special activity in which one engages only a relatively small proportion of one's time. The Course, on the other hand, emphasizes that to teach is to learn, so that the teacher and the learner are the same. It also emphasizes that teaching is a constant process, and it goes on every moment of the day and continues into sleeping thoughts as well. To teach is to demonstrate. There are only two thought systems. You demonstrate what you believe one or the other is true all the time. From your demonstration, others learn, and so do you. The question is not whether you will teach, for that there is no choice. The purpose of the Course might be said to provide you with a means of choosing what you want to teach on the basis of what you want to learn. You cannot give to someone else, and this you learn through teaching. Teaching is but a call to witness, to attest to what you believe. It is a method of conversion. This is not done by words alone. Any situation must be to you a chance to teach others what you and what they are to you. No more than that, but never less. The curriculum that you set up is therefore determined exclusively by what you think you are and what you believe the relationship of others is to you. In the formal teaching situation, these questions may be totally unrelated to what you think you are teaching. Yet, it is impossible not to use the content of any situation on behalf of what you really teach and therefore learn. To this, the verbal content of your teaching is quite irrelevant. It may coincide or it may not. It is the teaching underlying what you say that teaches you. Teaching but reinforces what you believe about yourself. Its fundamental purpose is to diminish self-doubt. This does not mean that the self you are trying to protect is real, but it does mean that the self you think is real is what you teach. This is inevitable. There is no escape from it. How could it be otherwise? Everyone who follows the world's curriculum, and everyone does follow it until he changes his mind, teaches solely to convince himself that what he is what he is not. Herein is the purpose of the world. What else, then, would its curriculum be? Into this hopeless and closed learning situation, which teaches nothing but despair and death, God sends his teachers. And as they teach his lessons of joy and hope, their learning finally becomes complete. Except for God's teachers, there would be no hope of salvation, for a world of sin would seem forever real. The self-deceiving must deceive, for they must teach deception. What else is hell? This is a manual for the teachers of God. They are not perfect, or they would not be here. Yet their message is to become perfect here, and so they teach perfection over and over in many, many ways. And until they have learned it, then they are seen no more, although their thoughts remain a source of strength and truth forever. And who are they? How are they chosen? What do they do? How can they work out their own salvation and the salvation of the world? This manual attempts to answer those questions. Again, who are they? How are they chosen? What do they do? And how can they work out their own salvation and the salvation of the world? Back to you, Regina.
Thank you. I loved your background, Phil. That was gorgeous. Thank you. So, as I mentioned, first of all, I think it's a little bit funny because it may show that to at least some degree, the wrong mind can't get in the way. Because as I mentioned, the reason I read the manual for teachers first was literally because I did not want to commit to that big, heavy text or to that year-long course. I asked the question, what next? Because I had achieved all my goals. I didn't feel satisfied. I didn't know where to go. And to be absolutely honest, when I asked what next, I wasn't asking God, at least that wasn't my intention. I was asking myself, and I expected the answer to be a new career goal. So that's kind of funny. I asked, what next? And what came to mind immediately was A Course in Miracles. And then I pull it out. I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to do that. I'm looking at the text, look at the workbook. Oh my God, I don't want to do that. Oh, look at this little bitty book in the back. I'll start there. But the funny thing is what happened to me when I read this introduction. And that's what I'm going to explain to you now. First of all, we all, we kind of know at least a portion of the rest of the story now. And it's important that we erase this from our minds temporarily. I mean, we know that Regina turned out to be a teacher, in the way that she teaches retreats and teaches online and started a church called Awakening Together and wrote books and wrote courses. We all know now that that happened. I had no idea or any intention of any of that when I read this. So when I read the word teacher here, I was not at all, and this is really important for you to understand, I was not at all imagining that I would be a teacher of A Course in Miracles or anything else spiritual. I purely saw myself as a student as I read this. As a result, I understood what this said clearly. I understood that a teacher of God is someone who chooses to live their life, every moment of it, from their faith. Like it says, to teach is to demonstrate, right? I understood this first sentence very well. The role of teaching and learning is actually reversed in the thinking of the world, right? It seems as if the teacher and the learner are separated, the teacher giving something to the learner rather than to himself. I understood that perfectly. And maybe one reason I understood that perfectly is because I was a teacher. I was the director of a corporate training department. And I had taught classes, I had taught communication classes, management classes, project management classes, change management classes, software classes. And I already knew from my own experience that the person who learns best is the teacher. I knew that. So this wasn't hard. These first few sentences weren't hard for me to understand. I already knew this. So I understood immediately that teaching, that the one who learns the best is the teacher. I knew that. And I also understood when it talks about to teach is to demonstrate. There are only two thought systems, and you demonstrate that you believe one or the other is true all the time. Right? I understood that. I understood, believe it or not, I understood that from when I was one of Jehovah's Witnesses. When I was a teenager, just a few years, from like age 13 to 15, I became one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, I had been a Baptist before that. And I understand now this isn't true in all congregations of Jehovah's Witnesses. I talked to other people who were Jehovah's Witnesses at one time, and they talk about the hypocrisy that happened in their congregation. But somehow I landed in a very sincere congregation. And the people that I knew really attempted to live their faith in every moment of their life. And I learned that from them. Now, in the end, I saw something in the faith that I thought couldn't be true, and so I left it. But that living your faith thing, like, this isn't just something that you go to church on Sunday morning. That's not how it was for us, and the rest of the time you just be whatever you are. In the 3 years that I was one of Jehovah's Witnesses, I was one of Jehovah's Witnesses. I really was. I lived that, and so did everyone else around me. So this is also something I understood. It's funny how your prior life can prepare you, right? I also totally understood that there's only two thought systems. And I then, even as witnesses, we called it worldly or truth. Those are the terms we used. There's only two thought systems, worldly or truth. And you either live from one or the other, and you're going to teach yourself the one you live. It's almost as if this introduction was written just for me. And so when I read this introduction and I understood it completely, something in me shifted in that very moment. The way I would word it is that I knew I was making a 24-hour a day, 7-day-a-week commitment to this course. I understood that's what it was asking me to do. And I understood that's what I was going to do. And I went on to read the rest of the manual for teachers, and I'm sure there were other things that stood out to me. But as I look at it now, 16 years later, what I remember the most about the manual for teachers is that experience of reading the introduction, understanding what it was asking of me, and saying yes. And again, never imagining that I would actually, be a teacher in this form. I just understood that when I read the course and I learned from the course, I had to bring it into my life, and that my life had to be guided by it. And then it was shortly after that, a week or two, that we went on that Disney cruise, and I began the course. Another line that's in the introduction, actually this line is in Who Are God's Teachers? It's on the next page. Who are God's teachers? So Phil didn't read this. But it says, let me just read a little bit of this since Phil didn't read this. I'm going to skip around a little. I'm going to read the lines that I have underlined in mine. But it starts off, a teacher of God is anyone who chooses to be one. His qualifications consist solely in this. Somehow, somewhere, he has made a deliberate choice in which he did not see his interests as apart from someone else's. Once he has done that, his road is established and his direction is sure. A light has entered the darkness. And this is the line I really wanted to get to, but I wanted to read up to it. It may be a single light, but that is enough. I don't know exactly what that means. I guess whenever you read something somebody else has written, you don't really know what it meant to that one. Like, I don't know what Helen understood as she wrote that sentence, but I understand how that sentence communicates to me. And I think how it would have communicated to Moses, to be absolutely blunt. I don't think that that when Moses received his calling, I don't think he felt qualified. I don't think he felt like, oh yeah, I've done this and this and this and this, and now I'm completely ready to go and free the slaves, free the Israelites. I don't think he felt qualified at all. And And as my callings came forth, the callings that came over the years, I didn't feel qualified. I didn't feel like, oh yeah, I'm all prepared. I'm the one that has this. I'm the one that can give it. I didn't feel qualified at all. I think that's the single light. That single light is just being willing to say yes. That's the single light. It's highly possible that you don't know anything about what you're about to do. You know, Moses certainly could not have predicted his path. I certainly could not have predicted my path. But the fact that you say yes, right, that's the single light. And then if you stay with that yes, and if you follow that yes, you know, everything else will be given. Also, what I have underlined in who are God's teachers, they are the ones who have answered. The call is universal. It goes on all the time, everywhere. Many hear it, but few will answer. I skipped around again a little bit, reading only what I have underlined, but listen to this. You know, again, the question at the top of the page, who are God's teachers? They are the ones who have answered. The call is universal. It goes on all the time, everywhere. Many hear it, but few will answer. So you become a teacher of God by saying yes. That's it. Yes. Now you're a teacher of God. And you don't have to figure out what to do with that. That's what's really important. You don't have to figure out what to do with that. In fact, it goes on to say, each one begins as a single light. Remember, I said, in my humble opinion, the single light is the yes, right? Each one begins as a single light, but with the call at its center, it is a light that cannot be limited. And each one saves 1,000 years of time as the world judges it. So you begin with the yes. You know, you may not feel at all, you know, like, who are you to be God's servant? I mean, I think that's exactly how Moses felt, right? Who are you to be God's servant? You may not feel at all that you're anybody at all to follow guidance, to do something helpful. I mean, that's irrelevant. That's what this says. That's irrelevant. If you say yes, that single light, that yes, well, that light has the call at its center. That's what you said yes to. The call is at its center. And that call, therefore, that light cannot be limited. And again, what's really fun is that we all get to sit here now kind of looking at the history of Regina. And, you know, if you're one of the people who thinks Regina is special, man, you got to get rid of that right now. That's the point of the story. The point of the story is that, you know, all I did was say yes. And then everything else unfolded far beyond any imagination that I would have ever had. It's interesting if I go back and look at the imagination that I had, because it was actually very little. I never imagined myself as anything more than a student, but I did have an expectation that being the student would take me to enlightenment in this lifetime. And I also had an expectation that things would change. I didn't know how, but I knew that if I had been living with the world and now I was going to live with truth, I knew that was a different path, and I knew things would change. This is long before receiving any specific calling. In fact, this was upon coming back from that cruise. You know, on the cruise, I felt the calling come down over me. The first hint of it was reading the manual for teachers, but the bigger hint was when I said that prayer. Because remember, I didn't say that prayer. That prayer came down over me, and I said it from the inspiration. It wasn't Regina praying, right? When I came back from that cruise, I knew nothing except everything had just changed. And I didn't want my family to be worried because I knew there were going to be changes. I didn't know what they were, but I knew that. So I talked to each of my family members, meaning Ron, my mom, my dad, my brother, and his wife at the time. And here's what I told them. I told them that I had made a decision to become enlightened in this lifetime. And I didn't know what that meant, but I knew that things were going to change. And I didn't know what they were going to look like. But when they changed, I didn't want them to be scared. I wanted them to know that this is what was happening. That was the extent of my imagination. And I think it's really interesting that I told my family that because within a year of telling them, but within a year I had received guidance to quit my job, move, and then later these teachings began coming, the writing of the Holy Spirit's interpretation of the New Testament, all of which would be very weird from my family culture point of view. And yet somehow my family has always been able, they don't understand it, but they're able, the way they word it is they trust me. They trust me. They don't fear it. And I think probably it has something to do with the fact that I at least had the guidance to tell them, here's a decision I've made. I know things are going to change. I don't know how, but when they do, this is why they're changing. So why am I sharing this today? I think probably there's two primary reasons. One, as you guys know, I am no longer the president of Awakening Together. My next guidance has come, and my next guidance was to step way back and focus on meditation. And just like I followed every other guidance that's come along, I'm following this guidance too. To some people, this is a change. To me, it's not. To me, it's doing the same thing I've always done, which is follow the guidance, right? I haven't changed, nothing's changed. So, but I know that a part of my stepping back is so you can hear the call and step forward. And I want you to know that you don't have to know what that call is. I didn't know what it was when I said yes. I want you to know you don't have to have even the slightest inkling of what it is. You just have to know that you're being called, and you just have to say yes. That's the single light. Now, some of you may say, well, I'm not being called like Regina was called, but that's the ego. How do I know? Because it says right here in the Who Are the Teachers section. The call is universal. It goes on all the time, everywhere. You're most definitely being called. Everybody on the planet is being called. So if you have a thought in your mind, oh, I'm not being called, well, that's BS. Okay, that's ego. Also, some of you may think, I'm not prepared, I'm not ready, I'm just starting. Well, that's exactly where I was when I received my call. I was a completely brand new Course in Miracles student. I didn't even know anybody else that had the book. I'd never listened to a single teaching. That's where I was when I received my call. So to think that you have to be somehow prepared, that there's certain things you have to accomplish first before you can say yes, that's just the ego trying to stop you. So one reason that I'm sharing this message today is to let you know that you are called, and that a part of my calling to step back is to prepare the space for your calling to step forward. Another reason that I'm sharing this is I want you to know what the heart of the calling is. The heart of the calling is choosing to live your faith in every moment. You know, the word teacher scares some people. You know, they think, oh no, am I going to have to, teach like Regina did? Some of you, yes, some of you will. Some of you will fill the gap that I am leaving by stepping in. That's exactly what's going to happen. But there aren't going to be enough gaps for all of you to do that. So what that means is some of you are going to be called to do other things. And I don't know what those things are either. One thing that's interesting is that tonight at the ministers' meeting, Doreen is already answering the call. I can tell you that. And what Doreen has developed, I think maybe some collaboration with some other people, but the inspiration I feel really came through her. What she has developed is what she's calling some inclinations for the ministers. They're paths, where the minister will choose a path from these inclinations to focus on upon completing MPP. And these will be added to our Being and Awakening Together minister curriculum. But for those of you who have already completed that curriculum and those inclinations didn't exist yet, tonight you're going to be introduced to them. I had nothing to do with that. The only thing that I did when Doreen, I didn't even ask Doreen to come up with inclinations. I mean, I had nothing to do with that. Doreen heard an inner call. Doreen said yes. Doreen brought them forward, and Doreen presented them. And the only thing I did was look at them and go, wow, those are perfect. I can't think of anything I'd add. And see, that's an example of what's going to happen now with me stepping back. To some degree, it would be unfair to say that Regina has done everything in Awakening Together. That would have been impossible. But to some degree, there's a truth to that. To some degree, most of the visioning that has come into Awakening Together in the last 7 years has come from this person. This person wrote MPP, 100% of it. This person wrote Gentle Healing, 100% of it. This person was teaching in the sanctuary every single day that the sanctuary was open, including twice on Wednesdays and often twice on Sundays. So there was a lot coming through this person. That's going to stop now. And that's creating the gap that will be filled by your inspiration, just like these inclinations came from Doreen's inspiration. And I don't know what that's going to look like, nor do I need to know what that's going to look like. You just want to start with knowing that you are being called. This is the call. You hear it right now. Your ears are hearing it. Whether you're here live in the sanctuary or whether you're listening to a recording or a YouTube video later. And then you want to check with your heart. Find that yes, because it's already there. You don't have to decide if you want to say yes. That yes lives in you. You just have to find it if you're not already in touch with it. And then say yes. And let what happens next happen next. I've heard people express different emotions about me stepping back. There are some people who are just supportive, and I really appreciate that. I mean, they're just supportive. They get it, and they're supportive of my next step. I've heard others who feel like there's some kind of a sense of lack being created. And that can't be true. There's never a lack in God, and this is coming from God, just like everything else that I've ever done has. So that's imagination. So if you feel there's some kind of a lack occurring by me stepping back, please let that go. That's just standing in the way of you hearing your calling. I have heard some people celebrate. Not many, but there have been a few that don't like Regina and think, yay, phew, let's get rid of her. Well, that's ego too. I mean, you don't have to be sorry I'm leaving. I like the people who are supporting that I'm following my calling. I mean, that's what this statement of purpose that I read today is all about, right? We trust everyone is led by unique inner guidance to one experience called awakening, which is realization of one true self. We live this value by supporting one another on different paths of awakening. You know, mine is pulling back from the kinds of public things I've always done, going into a more private position in meditation. So to support me, that's really coming from the right mind. To celebrate, you know, ding dong, the witch is dead, the wicked witch, the wicked. That's called judgment. That's going to block your own calling. So if you're one of those few, I recommend that you let go of that. Another thing that I've seen in a few people is jealousy. Somehow, and again, this would also come from lack. Somehow they think I'm getting something they aren't getting. You know, you know, that's just never true either. And remember, I didn't start with this step. This step that I am pulling back and going into meditation in my journey. Now, your journey may be different. For some of you, it may be the first step. But this wasn't the first step. The only thing that I got, which you can also get, was I said yes, and I followed the guidance, and it's leading me perfectly. And it always has been, from the first time when I said yes. And you can have that too. In fact, that's what this is asking you to do. Say yes. And don't expect your path to look like mine. Don't expect that you're going to do the exact same things I did in the exact same order, because that's never happened in the history of the world, and it will never happen. All right? Just say yes and find out what your path is going to be. And if you have jealousy, let that go, because that's just ego, and that's a block to you knowing your own guidance. To be honest, the only right-minded reaction to my guidance is for you to have gratitude for me, to support it. And that's the only right-minded reaction that I can have for your guidance. And that's why that's one of our core values. All of these other reactions come from the wrong mind, which means we're teaching ourselves that we are the wrong mind. Right? We're teaching ourselves that we are the wrong mind when we believe those thoughts. A part of saying yes is recognizing this is ego and letting it go and stepping into the support and stepping into the unknowing for yourself. You say yes without knowing what that yes is going to bring for you. But I promise you that if you say yes, and if you choose to be that living demonstration of your own faith to the best of your ability, you will be led to your own awakening in your own way. That's what the yes is all about. And it is for each and every one of us. For those of you who have had the thought it's only for Regina, or Regina's had the thought that she's the only one that can't do it. We all have those thoughts. We all think we're the one that can't. Regina had those thoughts very recently, a week ago. One of the things that I have done as a part of my next step for guidance is I have signed up for the Finders course. I'm now taking the Finders course. It's written by Jeffrey Martin and his crew. And in the Finders course, you have to write a goal. And then after you write a goal, you have to write, one of the things you have to write, there's a few things. One of the things you have to write is, what are your obstacles to the goal? And it's as I was examining the obstacles that I really found that fear that I'm not going to be able to complete this. Right? There was that fear that either either now that I'm being given the space to contemplate, to focus on meditation, right? In fact, contemplation ended. I actually finished the 7 Steps to Awakening on Friday. The Finder's course started on Saturday. That's a formal transition from my 16 years of contemplation into my next phase, which is meditation. I have nothing to contemplate. Nothing new has been given to contemplate. Contemplation will not be a part of what I'm doing. Meditation, that's my job, right? But there was this fear that I wrote down that now that the space is being given to meditate, that I will misuse the space, that I will waste my time. But then after that came a deeper fear. The deeper fear was that I won't waste my time, that I will apply myself fully to this and still will not awaken. See, we all have that fear in us. That's why some of you aren't applying yourselves. That's why some of you aren't saying yes. Because, shoot, what if I say yes and my deepest fear becomes my reality? You know, I say yes and I don't receive guidance. I don't awaken. You know, like I'm the one that gets left out. You see, that's why people don't say yes. And it's helpful to understand that fear is in everyone. But remember what this said, and this was in Who Are God's Teachers? His road is established and his direction is sure. This is referring to the one who answers the call. His road is established and his direction is sure. A light has entered the darkness. It may be a single light, but that is enough. He has entered an agreement with God, even if he doesn't believe in him, even if you don't believe in God. Each one begins as a single light, but with a call at its center, it is a light that cannot be limited. Right? That's what you want to remember. You want to trust those words over the belief that you're the one. You're the one. I mean, that's the belief. You're the one who's not going to do this. Everyone around you will awaken. Everyone around you will receive guidance. And the only thing that's going to happen by you saying yes is it's finally going to prove that you are the loser. That's the fear. And I don't think you have to look too hard to find it. And this is what keeps people from saying yes, right? So just remember, everybody has that fear, and everybody who's ever awakened had that fear, and it's not true. It's merely an obstacle. When I was writing this out as a part of the Finder's course, the part that I was looking at is, what are my obstacles? It's just an obstacle. And the next thing I had to write was, what was I going to do to overcome this obstacle? And the answer was basically, you know, I just have to trust this path I'm on and keep moving forward. Right? In other words, don't let the obstacle stop me. And so I'm here to ask you not to let the obstacle stop you either. I don't know what's coming next. Yay! That means it gets to come from God. Right? 5 years from now, if you guys all say yes, 5 years from now, we'll at least know part of what was coming next, because it will have happened, just like it's happened with Doreen developing these inclinations. No telling what's going to come from you guys. No telling how you're going to serve. But let's start with the yeses. All across awakening together. You know, maybe more yeses than there's ever been at one time before. Wow. I mean, that's possible. Certainly people have said yes. But has a whole group of people like us ever said yes at one time? What if we all just say yes right now? If you feel it, don't if you don't. If you do, just say yes, yes. I don't know what that means, but yes. As I mentioned, the song that we played at the beginning of this was one of the songs that I listened to prior to, it was in between the Disney cruise and receiving my calling to write for Spirit. And those months in between, there were some songs that I listened to over and over and over and over and over again. Look at all the yeses, I love them. over and over and over and over and over again. And I really think these songs prepared me. One of them we listened to at the beginning. It was Guide Me by Scott Grace. Another one of those songs we're going to listen to next. It's Song from Mother Teresa by Scott Grace. And I know these won't be on YouTube when you see this teaching on YouTube, but you can find them on YouTube and you can go and listen to them. They helped prepare me, and they may help to prepare you too. So we're going to go in a moment, and I'm going to turn this over to Dawn in just a moment, and she's going to play that Song from Mother Teresa, which is another one of those songs I listen to over and over. But also, as you guys know, this is an opportunity to, if you feel guided to donate, you can donate. It's like passing the plate in a physical church, like the one Phil looks like he's in. But it's also a time to contemplate. If you haven't said yes, contemplate. See if you can find that yes in you. You can type yes during the song if it comes up during the song. Dawn, I turn it over to you. All right, so this is the opportunity now for you guys to share based on what you've just heard. Actually, we only have like a minute, so maybe one person share, then it will have to go into the fellowship. Who would like to share? I'm laughing at Connie just because she looks so relaxed. Looks so nice out there in the sun. All right, nobody, I don't see anybody. Oh, wait, I do see Rev Gloria. Go ahead.
Good morning, beloveds, and good morning, Regina. Thank you so much. I just wanted to really jump in here this morning and express, number one, my deepest gratitude for every way that you've said yes to your calling, and the gratitude that I have to see the domino effect of that. That's one thing for sure, that we can see the evidence of what happens a lot of times. You spoke about the fear, but the other thing that I wanted to comment on was how relevant, and as you were speaking initially about this stepping back and allowing others to step forward with their yeses and to see what the unknown holds for us. What I was reminded of was how much that reflects our current position in the world that we're living in, how so much of what we know has been stopped, and what we know to be normal is over. It has all stopped, and we're all being asked to step back and say yes to an unknown future. So in some way, I know that this resonates with the whole, right? We're not separate from the whole. We never have been, and we never will be. So I think that this is absolutely reflective of the whole right now, of where we are as a one true self. So that's one thing I wanted to say. The other thing is that you talked about fear being, and yes, also you spoke about your family and the support that they had for you, and how you felt like sharing your path forward is what helped them to be supportive. And I just felt strongly that because this was so destined for you, you were destined to be around people who would support your move forward and not become obstacles to that path forward. And that just also speaks to everything already being what it is. Like, we don't have to worry about what our yes will lead to. It's already written. The script is already written. Everything that we need to move forward as an organization, as a people, will be given, because our sheer presence here in the Awakening Together Sanctuary is a yes. Every person who shows up here, who listens, who honors their calling to be a teacher of God, is saying yes by simply showing up here. I know for me, when I stepped up to the plate and said yes, I can recall vividly a few years ago, Dove stepping up after I had spoken one time and saying, that he thought that I should pursue teaching in the sanctuary as a regular basis, I was able to say yes to that because at that point there had been enough undoing of the belief that I'm not worthy. So yes, fear plays a superior role in our ability to say yes, or it can stop us from actually saying yes, that's for certain. But for me, it was also the undoing of that belief that I was not worthy, that I was not okay enough to say yes, right? Without that, I would have completely backed away from the opportunity to answer the call to be the teacher of God that I was created to be. I just wanted to say I love you, Regina. Thank you so much for everything that you've given to Awakening Together. And that's it.
Thank you, Rev Gloria. And I just want to say amen. Amen to everything you just said, because that was so inspirational coming from you in that way. Thank you. And it is time for our weekly gathering to end and for our fellowship program to begin. So I notice at least Ruby has her hand up. So if you can just hold on for a moment, Ruby, we will let you speak during the fellowship program. I just want to say a thank you to everyone. Again, you know, my role is going to be different going forward. I'm going to be much more in the background, but I will still be here. But I just want to say it's been an honor to be the president minister of Awakening Together for the last 7 years, and to watch it develop to this point where it's really being turned over to you. And it's also going to be an honor to watch and see what you do with it. So thank you for everything. And Don, I turn the mic over to you.
Thank you for watching. This was our weekly gathering that we hold online. For more information, you can visit our website at awakening-together.org, or you can subscribe to our Awakening Together channel and click the bell for more notifications when we post our weekly gatherings. Thank you again for watching.